This is NPR Illinois. Illinois is in the top 10 states for cyber crimes for the second year in a row. Illinois ranks fifth in the number of victims, seventh for money lost. The FBI advocates for people to practice cyber hygiene, use practices such as automatic updates, unique passwords, and antivirus software to secure your devices and accounts. To find out more, Cole Longcore talked with FBI Special Agent Aaron Van Hoff. He's with what is known as the Cyber Squad.
Prior to coming into the Bureau, I was a programmer, so I have a technical background coming in. I initially worked criminal and then counterterrorism matters, and eventually got to work cyber for the past approximately 13 years. And we address all those issues that are in our area of responsibility here in the lower part of Illinois, or the central and lower part, which include both criminal and national security cyber matters.
What does the process look like for the Bureau to handle a cyber crime, and how does, reporting a crime work?
So we are the FBI is the lead cyber threat response for the U.S. government. So any kind of threat that comes through cyber means, and when I say cyber, it's not necessarily anything that touches a computer, but anything that's sophisticated. And for the FBI, in our cyber investigations are structured different than most other disciplines. A lot of times, if you're dealing, say, for instance, with a violent gang squad, their gangs are going to be in their territory, or they might have international links, but a lot of times, a lot of their subjects will be in their area. With cyber investigations, it's global. Cyber actors will hide where they're operating from through devices and IPs and proxies and different technical means. They can hide where they're working and operating from. And we, working with these other foreign partners, we are able to. That's the basis of our investigation, trying to figure out where they are, what's the crime they're committing, and gain evidence of that. You might see it as a listener might see it as a suspicious email that comes through. Phishing campaigns are very familiar to most people, I think, where they've gotten a lot better. They used to be misworded. The English wasn't that great. Now, not only the wording is perfect English, but a lot of times it makes sense to what it is you're doing in your life. If you were just talking to somebody about vacations, or it has something to do with your work. A lot of times when there's a term called business email compromise. So if a hacker is able to compromise somebody, get them to click on a link in a phishing campaign, that allows them access to that computer, which then allows them access to the network at their work. And with that, they're able to view communications and very much so understand the day-to-day operations of that business. So then they can craft an email, say from your boss, to you saying, hey, set up an account for this new vendor that we have and send this amount of money over to them. And if there aren't checks and balances in that, if at the end of the day you're not going over with the approver of that, who initiated that or supposedly initiated that email, and verifying with them verbally or some other means, hey, did you want these 10 transactions to go? That transaction is going to go through, and that money is going to go to a nefarious account. So if we often refer people to ic3.gov, that's the Internet Crime Complaint Center, and it is the catch-all for, there's just a quick form there. It captures all the pertinent details. It'll walk you through what we're looking for.
And then what does the process of a cyber investigation look like? Like, how long does it take to go from report or a complaint to an actual investigation and then hopefully some sort of action?
It really depends on, easiest case scenario would be somebody who is local, is the perpetrator or the actor or the subject of our investigation. And if they are sloppy in their operational security, meaning when they're on their computer, they're not trying to hide who they are, where they come from. Maybe in the scenario that I gave you with the business email compromise, they give their personal account to send the money to. And once we subpoena that account, we see, this belongs to person A, we then have them identified. So it's a quick turnaround for investigation. If we have one of the more complex cases that we have, sometimes you have actors are motivated by financial gains. They want to defraud people and get their money. Sometimes they want to disrupt the lifestyle of a person, or sometimes a group, an organization, or even a nation. Nation-state actors are the most advanced. We call them advanced persistent threats. They're the most advanced cyber threats that we have. In some countries, there's regiments of military that their day-to-day job is to figure out how they can hack their enemies. And if we're one of their enemies, then that's their day-to-day job, is trying to figure out how do we hack and disrupt the United States. They're very sophisticated in that they're very well versed in the tools and techniques to hide their identities, to hide who they are and where the traffic, the malicious traffic is coming from the internet. And they're very diverse in their ways of their campaigns of trying to disrupt or steal from. It could be intellectual property. It can be research and development information. But those are the harder ones to prove. Number one, what the activity is. Number two, who's doing it, and ultimately, if we can figure out the individual, well, are they working for a nation-state sponsor? So those are long investigations, and typically those are investigations the FBI will cover because they do take a lot of resources and take a lot of time. And in the end, it's not like you're going to have multiple. I guess a win in law enforcement would be arrests, indictments, those kind of things along the way. It might be not as many as you would think for all the resources and time you put into it.
What are some of the top areas or categories, I guess, of cybercrime?
So cybercrime comes in different areas. It just depends on what's being targeted and the reasons they're being targeted. I would say probably the most common is financial gain. We here in Illinois, based on 2022 Internet Crime Complaint Center reports, Illinois was ranked the fifth as far as crime victims at about a little over 14,000. And we were seventh for victim losses of 266 million. The probably personal data breaches, non-payment, non-delivery of services, extortion are the highest victim counts. And then the highest monetary are definitely business email compromise, investment opportunities. In those cases, if within the first 24 hours, it's critical. In the banking system, there's a bit of a lag between, say, when you deposit, and I think most of us are familiar with this, if you deposit a check in your account, it sometimes takes for that to clear. Banks now will say the funds are available immediately, but behind the scenes, it hasn't cleared from the other bank yet. It takes a day or two for the transactions and the records to be, for one account to be credited and the other one to be debited or vice versa. So if we're able to catch a malicious transaction in between there, we have a mechanism back at our headquarters that reaches out to banks and says, hey, this is a fraudulent activity, this is a fraudulent transaction, please reverse it and send it back to the original owner. And we're able to stop the funds from going where they shouldn't and then restore them back to the owner. So that's one of the key things. If you're in that situation, you talk to us, the quicker we can have that communication, understand where you bank, your account information, we'll send that to our team and they can get stuff reversed.
Are bigger attacks actually more frequent, or does it just vary in size of attack?
So I think a lot of times there's probably, I don't know, I hate to give a percentage on this, but there's a lot more malicious activity going on that we're just not aware of. Even, it doesn't matter if you're a private citizen or a corporation. It's not, if you're a corporation, it's not a matter of if you'll ever have adversaries try to get into your system and be successful. It's a matter usually of when, and you have to be prepared for that. So we sometimes hear of these that come through the news and the media. A lot of times you might have instances where it doesn't get media attention, but it's still ongoing, and it's still, if you think about it, it's as if a non-cyber related example would be as if you had your house broke into. Well, maybe that does make the news, maybe it doesn't. But at the same time, it's devastating for whoever that's happening to, and it's a private issue. And in corporations, when they have these kind of things happen, it is, it's embarrassing sometimes, but it's also it just stopped everything that why you're set up and configured as an organization or a business. It usually stops everything, like in a ransomware attack case. It'll stop everything you're doing. And you have to address this before you can get back to business. And if that's a critical infrastructure, if that's a like a school system or a 911 dispatch center or a healthcare system, anything where we demand that we have those services available all the time, that's a critical thing. And some of those sectors might get more targeted because they are critical.
And looking at the recent IC3 report, the U.S. is targeted exponentially more, almost double the amount of the U.K., which is the second largest, and 20 times more of the other reported countries included in the report. So why is the U.S. the largest country targeted?
That's a good question. Those are good numbers. I believe it has to do with scale and opportunity. So there's a lot of, if you're thinking of it from a hacker's perspective, the attack vector or the surface which I can attack to try and gain, if it's for financial gains or otherwise, is a lot larger. I don't think that adversaries look at it as, well, I'm going to target this particular area geographically. I think it comes down to a couple things. Who are the targets that I'm going after? What are my objectives? I'm trying to get finances.
The IC3 report shows that the age group to file complaints the most is between 30 and 39, although the age group with the most dollars lost is 60 plus. Obviously, there's kind of a preconception or stereotypes that older populations less familiar with technology or tend to be the most vulnerable. So then why do we see a younger demographic file more complaints?
That's a good question. I'm not really sure. I haven't really looked at those numbers and done an analysis on it. But my first impression would be that age group, 30 to 39, seems to be a group that is unique in a couple of perspectives. They're in the workforce probably, or they're in the know-how of how the world operates. They probably have some perspective as opposed to somebody who might be younger as far as, does this seem appropriate or not? Is this something I should report? And they might have a better understanding of anomalies and when it would be something would rise to somewhere I would report it to somewhere else. And they might be more in the know. They might have more traffic coming in and out of their lives, whether it's work or their associates, their friends. They might hear things, folks come to them, at a party and talk about what happened to them, either on a personal level or at work, that seems suspicious to that person. So they might have more of those tendencies to report things. I would say the older generation, probably a few things, is one is they maybe aren't informed. Maybe they don't know where to go make a complaint. They might be trusting. I see this in the elderly fraud that we have reports that come in, and the instances I know of is the older generations, like my parents and my grandparents, for instance, are very trusting. My grandparents especially. They were in a day where, my handshake and my word is my bond, and everybody went off of that. And today's day and age, especially with technology, it's sad, but it used to be, trust but verify. Mm-hmm. I say now it's you got to verify before you trust anybody.
That's FBI Special Agent Aaron Van Hoff. He spoke about cybersecurity with Cole Encore. To report a cybercrime, go to ic3.gov.